everyone, this is Sambale from Mapbox, and I am with Marena, part of the community team of Mapbox. So we're going to share about some of the initiatives and work that Mapbox is doing with the community. Community means, the mapping community and a lot of the communities that leverage mapping for their work in various sectors. Okay, so we start with Marena presenting some of the collaborations that we have, and then we'll go through some of the examples also in the Philippines, which is very exciting.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Manning. Yeah, hi everyone. Happy to be connecting with you virtually through the internet. I'm in California and very excited about the program of the conference and looking forward to connecting with you about your projects. So yeah, let's share a little bit about the community team. We exist to help make positive impact projects happen. And I know that that's what so much of what your community is about. So yeah, if we go to the next slide, Manning. So I want to share just some examples of maps that we've seen of late from folks using Mapbox tools and open data and OpenStreetmap data. And wanted to kick things off with some of the COVID-19 response maps that we've been seeing this year. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of maps from around the world, people who are trying to use their technical skills and mapping tools to improve response efforts, whether that's case tracking maps, right, trying to make sense of all of this data about the number of infections that we're seeing. So we've got a picture of one of the projects from Japan. We've also seen, really heartwarming efforts from folks who are building tools to help people find supplies and find supports through these challenging times. So up in the corner there, we've got a project from Thailand, which is helping folks find places where they could order face masks and providing information, kind of crowdsourced information about how much masks were costing and what stores were open, where they could find them. And then the main image here is from a map actually from the Philippines, which was, again, a crowdsourcing effort to help folks report which businesses and restaurants and services were open and functioning at different points during the pandemic. And that these sorts of tools have been really, really vital for folks to find information with so much that's been changing and been uncertain. So these are just a handful of examples of the kind of global mapping community's response to the pandemic. Let's look at the next slide. So one of our long-term partnerships, and one of my very favorite ones personally, because I have a background in Indigenous land mapping, is with Amazon Frontlines and Digital Democracy. So they've been working primarily in South America around rainforest protection, but they also have been starting to work with partners elsewhere in the world and are looking for more partnerships. So if any of you are working in a space around Indigenous land rights or Indigenous land management, local community land management, they're really great partners in this space. They've been building tools for offline map data collection out in the forest and on the land called Mapeo Mobile. And then also Mapeo Desktop, which works offline. And so folks can edit and create maps and work with their mapping data in their communities. And they print these maps off in big posters so communities can use them in the field and in their communities. And then they've also been doing really great advocacy and campaign work using maps as a digital storytelling medium. And so this is one of the community leaders presenting about a mapping campaign that they created to help protect the Guarani land in Ecuador. And yeah, so another partnership as well. This is an example that I like to share for folks in the disaster response space. Catholic Charities USA, they've got this dashboard that visualizes data on disaster risk and social vulnerability, so poverty or different demographics. This particular project is for the United States, but it is an open source project, and so they've made their code available if you want to take a look and potentially replicate it. It's a great tool for data visualization and helping to inform response efforts. When a hurricane or another disaster hits, this organization has to decide where to prioritize their response efforts. So they're looking to see, okay, what parts of the what parts of the city, what census blocks are the most vulnerable and so they can kind of respond quickly to those areas. And this is a team based out of Singapore called Continentalists. They're not a nonprofit. They are a for-profit firm. They're an agency, but they've been building really, really powerful storytelling maps of late. And I wanted to include them. We've been working with them as a partner in the region. And they are, they've created one about understanding disaster risk in the Asia Pacific region. They created a storytelling map about the Hajj pilgrimage. And then they've also created a map about the Mekong River Delta. So they're a great team if you're kind of curious about using maps as a storytelling medium, kind of like a journalistic method. And they've been using the Mapbox storytelling template, which we'll point to later. But yeah, I think they're a great example of folks who are thinking about how can we use maps, not just kind of present a whole bunch of data, but actually walk people through a narrative and actually point people to interesting things in the data and interesting findings. So we've also worked with cities and local public agencies or teams within local government. One of our city's partners is the city of Melbourne. And so they were kind of curious about how they could use maps to engage the public in urban planning decisions and helping to visualize, okay, how is the city going to grow and get public input into some of those ideas. So they were using AR tools there down on the tablet. They've got a kind of AR projection. They had a kind of interactive sort of exhibit, basically, with different maps that folks could go in and toggle different settings and kind of imagine the future of their city. So if you work in a public agency, if you work in kind of urban planning, that's definitely also a use case that our team supports projects within. All right, and so we also work with a lot of nonprofits and organizations that are focused on conservation. So this group, the Citizens of the Great Barrier Reef, is from Australia, and they've created some really fantastic map experiences to help make the Great Barrier Reef alive and kind of accessible to folks in a digital format. They've got a wildlife tracking map, which is what I'm celebrating here. And they've also just launched the Great Barrier Reef Census, which is a big crowdsourcing citizen science effort to have folks actually dive different spots of the Great Barrier Reef and report on the conditions of coral that they're seeing. So yes, certainly folks that are interested in environmental conservation, renewable energies, wildlife, all of that, we see a lot of projects in that space and are very interested to see what you'd like to build to support efforts like that.
Okay, next slide is about the OpenStreetmap. We use a lot of OpenStreetmap data in our products. And we are a long-standing supporter of the mapping community, and one of which is supporting the humanitarian OpenStreetmap team, which maps vulnerable areas and responds to disaster. So in the big picture shown here is a tool that we worked with HOT to visualize the changes in the map. So in this case, how many buildings have changed, have been added in certain time. We also support a lot of disaster mapping. So, for example, in the earthquake that happened in Nepal, we were very supportive in organizing mapathons and also supporting the Nepal community to provide them high resolution imagery infrastructure so that we can respond to quickly map the areas that were affected by the earthquake. We also provide visualization tools that they can use. So, for example, this the last one on the top right is a visualization of mapping that happened in South America, which shows you what are the things that were mapped using OpenStreetmap. Aside from using the OpenStreetmap, we also review and validate the quality of the data. So we have a team that does this in in our office, and they review all the changes in the map every day. And whatever we see that needs to be fixed, we try to fix, and at the same time, we communicate these fixes through this tool, OSM-CHA. So OSM-CHA is a validation tool that we developed and shared back to the community. And if you notice, there's this flag that tells you that there's Mapbox, profanity, vandalism, and things like that. So these are the things that we saw in the map that should be fixed. And we make sure that this is shared back to the community so that they can also see what's happening within their areas, and they can also fix them along with the data fixes that we do within Mapbox. Another interesting story that happened here during our validation is that there was this one time that we saw a couple of mappers adding personally identifiable information in the map. So what we did in the company, in our team, is that we blocked them so that it doesn't reflect in the map. But at the same time, we shared back this feedback to the Philippine community. And what we found out through communications with the mappers is that they're actually using it for a community mapping initiative, which maps locations of people for their land rights management, so land tenure management. So the community helped the local mappers to how to improve their editing and things like that. And when we also discovered that they need high resolution imagery for identifying this location of residents. So we talked to the volunteer drone mapping community in the Philippines, and then we deployed drone in the area, which was used later on, integrated into the OpenStreetmap editor. And in this way, we were able to provide updated and high resolution imagery for the community, which is now almost finished in mapping the buildings, but they're also continuing to improve their community maps by identifying hazard areas and anything that's related to ensuring the safety of the community. You can read about this. We just posted a blog, and you can read about this story in our Mapbox blog.
All right. So yeah, a little bit more about kind of, well, the community team sounds great. You know, how can I get involved? You know, who do we work with? How can we help you? So the community team exists to help maps with positive impact happen. So, you know, you can think of our team as existing to help unblock you. If you're running into questions about data or data creation, if you want to learn how to use Mapbox tools, if you are running into kind of questions or concerns about your Mapbox account, a really wide range of things. If you're getting stuck somewhere in your mapping project and it involves Mapbox tools or OpenStreetmap as well, like some of the examples that Manning was sharing, think of our team as an ally in this space to help unblock you. And so we work with a really wide range of organizations, nonprofits, public agencies, some for-profit companies that have a positive impact mission. So if you're a social venture, or you know, you're as a company, you're working on a project that is for the public good. Also research groups or educators or students, all of these folks, you can reach out to our team and we're happy to help. We go next slide. And so what does that help look like, right? What's available here? So you can think of several categories. You know, we're here to help provide technical mentorship. We can help discuss the design of your project. We can help think about what sorts of Mapbox tools might be most useful for your project, or how to approach designing it. And in some cases, we might actually recruit a volunteer from a different team at Mapbox. So like Manning on our data services team is a pro at jumping in on questions about OpenStreetmap and data questions. So we'll reach out to these different teams and say, hey, we've got this really great organization. They're stuck on this question. Could we pair them up with a volunteer to maybe, you know, help mentor you, help figure out the question, or potentially even help, you know, build out a project or help to implement something. Also, there are some Mapbox products out there that require sort of special access. Maybe you're exploring the Mapbox website and you get really excited about something and it says contact sales, and you're like, oh, okay, for this community project, this isn't available for me. Don't give up. You could try talking to our community team, and we might be able to get you access. So that's things like the Mapbox boundaries data set, or storing permanent geocodes. If you need to export a lot of maps for print, for example, and you hit that limit, or some special data products like the Mapbox movement data, we do work with partners who need sort of special access to those things, and we can ask the product teams to donate them. And then also, so if you are building something with Mapbox, the pricing of Mapbox is based on usage. So it's free to get started. It's free to use Mapbox Studio and start using the mapping libraries. But if your project gets really popular, you might surpass our free threshold. So you might start getting some charges from Mapbox. And if that's a concern for you, if maybe you've got a limited budget, or you're a group of volunteers who are building with Mapbox, our team can help with that. We don't want costs to be a barrier or a blocker for you. So you can reach out to our team, say, oh, hey, our map went really viral and we've got this big invoice, can you help? Or ahead of time, if you're like, we're going to be launching this project and we think it's going to be really popular, can you help us with a coupon ahead of time? So yeah, either way, if costs are a concern, our team's here to help. And then finally, we love to share stories about what folks have built with Mapbox tools to help inspire other folks, in terms of what's possible, share stories about what it's like to build with the tools, invite folks to come present at events like this. I know the winners of the VisRIS conference presented earlier, and they're one of the groups that our team worked with. So if you've got a project and you want to spread the word about it, and you want to share your experience of building with Mapbox tools or with open data and OpenStreetmap, yeah, contact our team and we can think about how to get the word out. So, okay, so maybe this is all really exciting, but maybe you've never built with Mapbox before and you're not really sure where to get started. So our team helps put together learning resources and helps kind of direct folks to good places to get started for their projects. One set of tools that I like to recommend is our impact tools. So these are basic, there's a very accessible templates and tutorials for use cases that we on the community team see very frequently. So some of the most popular ones are, for example, one's called Sheet Mapper, and it's if you have data in a Google Sheet or in a spreadsheet and you just need to put that on a map, right? Nothing too fancy, you just want those points on a map and you want some little pop-ups with them. We've got a template code and step-by-step instructions on how to do that. We've also got one called Finder, which basically extends on the sheet mapper and adds some UI. So you've got a little sidebar and some filtering options. We've been building those out. We've added some ones about legends and charts and print maps and storytelling maps. So those are a great place to get started if maybe you're looking for your first Mapbox project. And we're also interested in suggestions. So if you think of a use case that would be really helpful to have as an impact tool, you can get in touch with our team and suggest that. And some other resources that are also really great places to get started, the education page, mapbox.com/community/education, links out to our education labs and other supports for students and educators and anyone who's learning Mapbox. And finally, I like to suggest the tutorials page as well, just for more learning resources that are out there from Mapbox. Right, so I think this is our second to last slide. So again, just kind of encouragement for you to reach out and engage with the community team if you're working on a project with positive impact. So anything from, in the early phases of your project and you're doing your design thinking, you're maybe scoping out which tools to use, we're happy to discuss your project and your ideas, through to the actual implementation, troubleshooting, figuring out which tools to use, doing reviews of your map design or reviews of your code, and helping with account questions. And so how to reach us? this is our webpage, mapbox.com/community. There is a form on that page that you can use to get in touch with us. Our direct email is community@mapbox.com, but I suggest the form as a good way to start the conversation, and that will go to our team, and then we'll reach out and start the conversation. So yeah, that's it. I hope to connect with some of you from the conference. Seems like a really great gathering, and thank you, Manning, for helping to connect us.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. If you have any questions and you're pressed for time zone, I'm in the Philippine time zone, so you can always ask me related to anything about Mapbox products, and especially with the community. Thank you very much, everyone, and we're now happy to answer questions.